Hi, do you love winter crafts? Well, you're in the right place. Hi, I'm Katie from Lady Red Crafting, and today's DIYs are easy and fun. So let's jump right in. Let's decoupage a whimsical snowflake for the winter season. Let's start with this cute little snowflake that I found at the Dollar Tree. It's a heavier piece of wood, and I'm going to put this down onto a paintable surface. Once I've removed the hanger from this snowflake, I'm going to grab my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster. Next, we'll go ahead and just paint the snowflake on both sides with that Waverly chalk paint. Now, once your paint has completely dried, I'm going to come in with my little zip sander here, and I'm just going to sand over the top of the paint, giving it a little bit of a worn look on the snowflake. So you'll see that wood come through on the edges. Now let's go ahead and set our snowflake aside, and I grab this beautiful napkin. I'm going to take this napkin and unfold it, and using a little piece of painter's tape, I'm going to remove the back two layers. Now that we have just the top layer of our napkin, I'm going to grab a little bit of water and a paintbrush. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the frame on this napkin, and I'm going to then go ahead and make little pieces of this napkin with the flowers. I want them to be irregular, so I'm tearing the napkin using this water method. And if you've never done this before, it is really simple. I just take my paintbrush and I'm going to paint the water around different pieces of the napkin, and then I just go ahead and tear really lightly. This just allows you to tear where you want to tear the napkin. So by adding the water, you're basically giving yourself a template for the areas that you want to tear. So while I'm preparing my napkin, let's talk about this fun playlist I'm a part of, Talented Creators. This playlist is hosted every month by DIY with Arias and Lily D's Creations. Thank you, ladies, for having me guest host this month. I am so excited to be part of this fun team. The playlist link is down in my description box below, and links to these wonderful ladies as well. Please check out the playlist, let them know I sent you, and give them some love. Thank you for watching, and back to our video. And now that we have all of our pieces of our napkin prepped, I'm going to go ahead and move these pieces to the side and grab that snowflake. Next, I'm going to grab my Mod Podge. This is the matte Mod Podge that I'm going to be using for this project. What we're going to do here is we're going to do this in little sections. So I'm going to be starting out by painting a little bit of my Mod Podge onto a snowflake. Then while the Mod Podge is still wet, we're going to lay a little piece of the napkin over the top. It doesn't need to be perfect. If it overhangs, that is just fine. Next, I grab a small piece of cling wrap, and I'm going to use the same piece for the whole entire project. So just lay that over the top of the napkin. And then I'm going to use my roller here, and I'm going to roll this into place. Now, by using the cling wrap, it's going to protect the napkin from tearing. And using this roller, it's going to help you smooth everything out so that there are no wrinkles. And if you end up putting a piece of the napkin on and there isn't any Mod Podge underneath, you can just lightly flip that up and then add a little bit of Mod Podge underneath that, and then repeat the same steps by using the piece of cling wrap and the roller and putting everything into place. Now you're going to keep repeating this step until you have completely covered the entire snowflake. Don't worry about any of the overhang. We are going to take care of that here in a minute. And one of the things that I love about this project, it is so much fun to do, and it can totally be done in a relaxing setting with some friends, or if you're just watching a show, you can just sit here and do your little decoupage on your snowflake. Now to cover this entire snowflake, I did end up having to use a second napkin. These were smaller cocktail napkins. If you would have had a larger napkin, you may have been able to just do this with one. And once you have all of your napkins in place, go ahead and let this dry. Once everything has dried, I'm going to come back in with an emery board here, and I am just going to basically use it to sand off any of the excess napkins on the snowflake. You could use a little piece of sandpaper. I wasn't able to use my zip sander very well for this because trying to get in between all the pieces was a little bit tricky. So the emery board did work a little bit better for this step. And once you are satisfied with your snowflake, I am going to come in with this foil from the Dollar Tree. Now this is an optional step. I wanted to give this a little bit more sparkle. So I'm taking these foil flakes from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to pour some of them out here onto my table. And then I'm going to come in with my Mod Podge. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do this in little sections where I add a little bit of Mod Podge to the wider areas of my napkin or snowflake, and then I'm going to add those pieces of foil on top. You could use tweezers for this, but I just found it was easier to use my fingers, and I'm just going to set the foil onto that Mod Podge. Now I want to let that dry to a tacky state before I come in for my next step. So I'm just going to continue doing this for a few minutes, and then I'm going to come back in with this brush. And this is just a paintbrush. It's a thicker paintbrush, but it's still smaller. And I'm just going to take it and I'm going to dry brush the excess foil off of the snowflake. And then I'm just going to keep repeating this step until I've coated the whole entire snowflake with a little bit of foil to give it that extra sparkle. Now, like I said, this is completely optional and up to you. If you don't want to do this foil step, that is totally fine. Now, what I like about this napkin as well is that it gives such a fun vintage vibe to the snowflake, but it also gives that little bit of whimsical and Valentine look. So the snowflake can be put out for the Christmas season, for the winter season, and can go right into Valentine's Day. Now, once we're done with the foil, I do come in with my pokey tool here, and I'm just going to remake the hole so we can hang our snowflake. Now, to seal all of this in and to prevent any wrinkles, I am going to be using my matte clear enamel from Rust-Oleum, and I'm going to take this outside and seal our snowflake. And while that is drying, I'm going to make a quick bow here. And I'm taking some vintage lace. This is cut from a panel that I've had for some time. And I'm just going to make the shape of a bow. Next, I'm going to grab this pink ribbon here that I've had in my stash. I did get this at Walmart during the Christmas season. And I'm just going to go ahead and make the shape of a bow with my tails. And then using a pipe cleaner, I'm going to attach both of these pieces. I'm going through this pretty quickly here, but this is pretty standard for the bows that I like to make. Now, once the pipe cleaner is attached in the center, I am going to cut off a little of that pink ribbon from my tail, and I'm going to fold it into thirds here, and I'm going to cover the center of that bow, just so we don't see that pipe cleaner. And to attach the ribbon on the center of that bow, I am just using a little bit of hot glue on the back side. Now, don't worry about any excess ribbon. Once that glue has dried, we'll go ahead and cut off the excess. And now our beautiful bow is ready to be added to our snowflake. Now let's do the final touches. I'm starting out with a little piece of satin ribbon, and this is going to be my new hanger for the snowflake. So I'm just going to go ahead and add that hanger to our snowflake. Once we have our hanger in place, I'm going to come in with that bow that we made, and we're going to hot glue that right underneath where the hanger sits. And that is all there is to it. This beautiful snowflake is now ready to display. I just love this snowflake. I love the vintage vibe it has, and I love adding pink into this season. Let me know what you think about this snowflake down in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this content, please consider hitting that like, subscribe, or hype button. Thank you. Let's do a fun decoupage craft for the winter season. I'm starting out with a beautiful napkin. This napkin I did get at Home Goods. And all we're going to do is unfold this napkin, and then I'm going to flip the napkin over, and using a small piece of painter's tape, we're going to remove those back 2 layers. And now that we have our napkin prepped, I'm going to grab one of these ceramic plates from the Crafter Square section at the Dollar Tree. Next, we're going to grab our Mod Podge. I'm using the matte Mod Podge for this project, and I'm going to do a nice heavy coat of the Mod Podge on this plate. And if you haven't tried these Mod Podge brushes, I love them. So if you would like to give them a try, I will put a link for them down below in my description box. Now, while the Mod Podge is still wet on our plate, I'm going to take that napkin that we prepped earlier, and we're going to lay that over the top of the plate. Next, grab some cling wrap and put a layer of cling wrap over the top of our napkin. Now I'm going to grab one of my rollers, and I'm just going to roll that napkin onto the plate. And if you don't have a roller, you can just smooth this out with your fingers. And after I've done the roller for a minute, I actually do that where I just smooth everything out. And by having that piece of cling wrap there, it helps keep you from tearing that napkin on the plate. And I find that this method works really well in removing wrinkles. Now go ahead and remove the cling wrap and let this dry. So once this was completely dried all the way, I did take some more Mod Podge, and I'm going to do a coat over the top and seal everything in. Then you want to let this dry completely. Now once this is dried completely, I'm going to grab my zip sander, or a sanding block would work just fine, and I'm going to sand in a downward motion and remove all of the excess napkin. Now go ahead and set that plate aside for a few minutes. Now I'm going to grab one of these wood ornaments from the Dollar Tree, and I'm going to take this and put this onto a paintable surface. Once I have that taped down, I'm going to use my Waverly chalk paint in the color Plaster, and we're going to give this snowflake a nice coat of paint. And once we are satisfied with our paint, I'm going to let the snowflake dry. Now let's go ahead and put everything together. I have my plate, my snowflake, and a cute little vintage lace bow. Next, I grab my hot glue gun, and I'm going to hot glue that snowflake to the front of our plate. So I'm going to flip this over and add a little bit of hot glue. Next, we'll go ahead and add that snowflake right to the center of our plate. Once we are satisfied with the snowflake placement, we'll go ahead and add that little bow to the very top of our snowflake. This will cover up that little hole there for the ornament. And now our little snowflake plate is complete. I just love how this turns out. This is such a great winter piece to display for the season. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And if you're enjoying this content, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe, or that hype button down below. Thank you. Here's a fun way to make over this little home sign from the Dollar Tree. Going to start out by just removing the tags, and then I'm just going to untie the knot at the top of this little string here and remove the beads and everything from it. Now I am going to keep this string because we are going to reattach everything later. Now to start our project out, I am only going to use 3 of these little circles here. It doesn't matter which ones you choose because we're going to be painting over them. So I'm taking my little zip sander, and what I'm doing is I'm just going to sand a little bit on the tops of these just to make sure there's no raised paint on these pieces. This will just help when we paint these over to make sure everything is nice and smooth. Now I'm going to go ahead and take these pieces and put them down on a paintable surface. I am taping them down so it'll be easier for me to get around the outside edges of these pieces. Using my Waverly chalk paint in the color plaster, I'm going to do a nice coat of paint over the top and on the sides. Once I have done 2 coats of paint on these, I will flip these over and do the other side. And now that our pieces have been painted, I'm going to be coming in with some different paint here. And this is my multi-surface black licorice paint, and I'm using the back side of a paintbrush. And as you probably guessed, we are going to make a cute little snowman. So I'm taking this and I'm going to use this to make my eyes, and then we'll go ahead and make the mouth. Now grab your Waverly pumpkin paint, or any orange paint would work, and go ahead and paint your little carrot nose. And now for our second circle, I'm going to come back in with the back side of my paintbrush again and add a few buttons. Now I'm going to go back to that string that we pulled all of these off of, and I'm adding a little bit of Scotch tape to the end. And I'm going to go down long enough till it's almost the length of the snowman's head, so it'll be easier to feed these through and string this back onto our string. So I started out by adding 1 bead to our string, and then I'm going to go ahead and add our base of our little snowman, and then I'll add the center and then the head. And now once we have all of these little pieces added to our string, I went ahead and I flipped it over. And at first I was going to paint a word there, and then I decided, no, I'm just going to make another snowman on the other side. So I repeated the same steps using the same color paints, adding the eyes, the nose, and the buttons. Now, once we are finished making our little snowman, I'm going to come in with a little bit of hot glue, and I am going to hot glue these circles into place so that they don't move around when we hang this. And now that everything is in place, I'm going to come back in and tie a knot at the top of this string to make sure that it all stays into place. Next, I'll go ahead and cut off the tape that I have on the end of the string, and we'll just tie a nice little loop so we have a way of hanging our snowman. Now for my final embellishment, I am taking this little black and white checkered ribbon, and I'm going to tie a little scarf around the neck of our snowman. And all you need to do now is trim the ribbon so you have your scarf the length that you would like, and your snowman is complete. I love this little reversible hanger snowman. I think this is so cute. It is such a fun way to go from the Christmas to the winter season, something you can add to your tree or leave out to decor for the winter. Get crafty with Lady Red's monthly newsletter. Tips behind the scenes and exclusive giveaways. And if you subscribe today, you'll get a checklist for your next craft party. Check out the link in the description box below. And if you love these cozy winter crafts, make sure to give this video a thumbs up or subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching. And if I don't see you till the new year, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. Thank you for watching, and until next time, please remember, craft more, stress less.